Their father Jacob said to them, "You've taken my children from me. Joseph is gone, Simeon is gone, and now you want to take Benjamin. Everything is going wrong for me." I'm sure that we all know the story of Joseph and his father Jacob. Joseph was the favoured son of the household, but his brothers had taken him secretly and sold him into slavery. Eventually, as we know, he saved Egypt from a disastrous famine, and he was made ruler or prime minister. Eventually, his brothers came to Egypt for food, and Joseph kept one of his brothers virtually as a hostage, and he demanded that they bring their youngest brother to Egypt. Jacob was devastated. He'd lost 2 sons already, and now he was about to lose a third. His life had completely crumbled before his eyes. Of course, when we read that story in Genesis, with the benefit of hindsight, we know that it would work out well. But Jacob couldn't know that at the time. He was a broken man. We'll come back to Jacob. Jesus knew that his time had come. He'd gone to that olive grove known as Gethsemane, and there he faced that internal conflict. The extreme stress of submitting to what he knew he would have to face. The hemohydroses were where under extreme stress or shock, the capillaries around the sweat pores become fragile and they leak blood into sweat. Soon he would be arrested and abandoned by those closest to him. Peter even swore that he would never deny Jesus, but 3 times in quick succession he denied even knowing him. Jesus was beaten. He was tied to a post. His entire back was exposed, and the Romans used a whip. They called it a flagrum, which consisted of small pieces of bone and metal attached to leather strands. The number of strikes is not recorded in the Gospels. But in Jewish law, the number of strikes was set in Deuteronomy 25. The number was 40. But later they reduced it to 39 in order to prevent excessive blows because of counting error. Often the victim would die from such a beating. 39 stripes should bring a criminal just 1 from death. During the flogging, his skin was stripped from his back, exposing a mass of muscle and bone and causing incredible blood loss, weakening the victim almost to the point of losing consciousness. A crown of thorns was placed on his head. Not like a traditional crown that's depicted as an open ring. The actual crown of thorns probably covered his entire scalp. The thorns would have been up to 5 centimetres long. The Gospels tell us that Roman soldiers continued to beat Jesus on the head, thus driving those thorns even further into the scalp and forehead, causing incredible bleeding. To mock him the soldiers dressed in a purple robe. Whilst the soldiers thought that his robe and crown were to mock the King of the Jews, biblically, they were actually significant. Isaiah said, "Though your sins are like scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. Though they red as crimson, they shall be like wool." Thorns appeared after the fall as a sign of the curse. And so, in fact, the articles that Jesus wore were symbols to show that he took upon himself the sin and its curse of the whole world. After the beating, Jesus walked on a path, one we now call the Via Dolorosa, the way of suffering. He was taken to Golgotha to be crucified. The distance, probably 700 metres or so. He was led through crowded streets carrying the crossbar of the cross on his shoulders, and that probably weighed around 50 kilograms. And Jesus was then crucified. Crucifixion was a practice that originated with the Persians and later the Carthaginians and the Phoenicians. The Romans perfected it as a method of execution designed to cause the maximum pain and suffering over an extended period. The crossbar was thrown to the ground and the victim laid on it. Nails about 15 centimetres long with a diameter of probably a centimetre were driven into the wrists. In ancient terminology, the wrist was considered part of the hand. His feet were then nailed to the upright. And when the cross was erected upright, there was tremendous strain put on the wrists and the arms and the shoulders that would result in dislocation of the shoulders and the elbow joints. The arms being held up and out held the rib cage into a fixed position, and it made it incredibly difficult to exhale and impossible to take a full breath. The victim could only take shallow breaths. Maybe that explains why Jesus made only very short statements on the cross. As time passed, the muscles, because of the loss of blood and lack of oxygen and the fixed position of the body, those muscles would begin to undergo extreme cramp, spasmodic contractions, shallowness of breathing will cause areas of the lung to collapse. Fluid would build up and the victim would eventually either suffocate or experience heart failure. And the crowd, they watched it all. If you were to ask every man and woman who stood at the foot of that cross, who joined the death watch on that Good Friday, most of them could tell you some personal connection that they had with Jesus. This man on the centre cross. There's John, the disciple that Jesus loved. He's standing there with Mary, Jesus' mother. Jesus even manages to tell his mother that John was now her son. And he said to John to treat Mary as though she were his own mother. I'm sure that in that crowd was Lazarus, Mary and Martha, Jesus' friends from Bethany. I wonder what Lazarus was thinking. I've been there, but I came back. If only. No, this death is too complete, too cruel, no, it just couldn't happen. Meanwhile, the words danced round in Martha's head. I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even though they die, shall live. Those words could be easily forgotten at a time like this. But I'm sure that for Martha those words remained. But those next few words would have haunted her as she watched Jesus die. When Jesus had said this, at the end of that statement about the resurrection, he said, do you believe this? How can I? The thoughts in Martha's mind, I saw what happened to my brother, yes. In fact, he's standing here with me now, but do I believe? How can I believe it now? After all, here he is, the one who said he was the resurrection and the life. Here he is, dying. How can he live again? Do I believe? The woman who was taken in adultery and set free by this man on the centre cross. She's there too, in shock and disbelief. Probably some of the onlookers ate some of the loaves and fish when Jesus fed thousands of people with nothing but a little boy's lunch. Maybe some of the guests from the wedding at Cana and dozens of others, cleansed lepers. A man who had never been able to walk until he met this Jesus. The man who was blind before he met Jesus now wishes that his eyes couldn't see what's happening to his healer. So many in the crowd. So many with a connection to the man crucified on that centre cross. Some remember a healing. Some remember words, life-changing words, life-giving words spoken on the shore of Galilee. Others recall a second chance that the Master had extended to them. Some remember a demoniac being set free. Each has a connection. The son of the widow of Nain looks across at Lazarus, shakes his head. Death is here, not life. Thought of resurrection was far from their mind on this dreadful Friday. They stand in clumps here and there on that stark, rocky hill. A hill that from a distance appears to have been sculptured by its creator to resemble a skull. Calvary. They stand. They're drawn together by the sheer terror of what is happening. Two words describe what they feel. Appalled, shattered. Why? Why did he have to die? Their hope, their joy, Their security was dying on a cross. Everything was going wrong. We read earlier about Jacob, and that's what he'd said as well. Everything is going wrong for me. But his sons came back from Egypt and told him that in fact Joseph was alive, living there in Egypt, and wanted to see him. And the Bible tells us in Genesis 45 that Jacob, now named Israel, said, "It is enough. My son Joseph is alive, and I will go and see him before I die." Suddenly all of Jacob's problems evaporated. Joseph, the one who was dead, he was alive, and now nothing else mattered. That's how it would have been for those standing at the foot of the cross on that day. If only they'd understood. But they didn't. The body that they took down from the cross was lifeless. They committed the resurrection and the life into the dark clutches of death, laid in a tomb, sealed with a rock, a Roman seal put upon it, and put under 24-hour Roman guard. It was over. The worst day of their life. Sorrow mixed with fear and uncertainty gripped their lives. If only they had known how soon Jacob's words would be on their lips. It is enough. If only they had known that what death had done to Jesus was nothing compared to what Jesus was about to do to death. But today, they knew none of that. Today was Friday. A very, very bad Friday. And surely nothing good could come of it. But it did.